Okay, looks like we are there. Let me get my second monitor going. Okay. Okay. Good evening, folks. My name is Tony Brewer, and I work with the Writers Guild at Bloomington, along with Joan Hawkins, who couldn't join us this evening, and Kyle Kloss, our technical director. We produce a monthly spoken word series, and I think this is our sixth year now doing this, in our second mostly full year, our second year of as an online series. And we're thrilled to have you here. We are sponsored in part by the Indiana Arts Commission, the Bloomington Arts Commission, and the Bloomington Urban Enterprise Association. The Writers Guild at Bloomington wishes to acknowledge and honor the indigenous communities native to this region and recognize that Indiana University and the city of Bloomington were built on indigenous homelands and resources. We recognize the Miami, Delaware, Potawatomi, and Shawnee people as past, present, and future caretakers of this land. So this is our first series event of 2021, and I'm thrilled to have Jennifer Moore, Ellen Birkett Morris, and Shannon Gibney reading for us this evening, as well as music from Stephan Crump. Going to be a hot show. I got a couple of announcement type things to make. If you are interested in receiving monthly prompts and having a friendly place to share your writing responses and read the work of others, check out Third Sunday Write. That is our writing workshop. Email Shauna Ritter at shauna747@gmail.com to get invited to a private Facebook group called Third Sunday Write. This is an ongoing workshop, but it typically meets monthly. Also happening this week, tomorrow, actually, another film event. If you were able to join us last week, we co-sponsored. We partnered with Writer magazine and film series on a documentary about poet C.A. Conrad. This week we are partnering with IU Cinema, part of their community collaborations project, for an online screening of the film Dissolution by Nina Menkes. That is tomorrow, February 4th. That is a virtual online screening. You have to register, but they send you a link and you watch it at your leisure. Dissolution is an experimental film inspired by Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment. IU Cinema is also making a link available for her film Queen of Diamonds. That'll be available February 4th through February 11th. That is a film of hers about a blackjack dealer in Reno. Ms. Menkes will also be giving a talk on Thursday, February 11th at 7 p.m. The talk is entitled Sex and Power, the Visual Language of Oppression. Also a reminder, our monthly business meeting for the Writers Guild is Saturday, February 20th at 3 p.m. via Zoom. You can contact the Guild to get a link for that. That's a business meeting. We don't talk too much about writing, mostly talk about things like partnering with film series and that sort of thing. So, but feel free to join if you'd like. Last thing is our last Sunday poetry reading and open mic will be available starting Sunday, February 28th. Our guest poets are Antonia Matthew, who I believe is joining us on Zoom this evening, and Anna Petro, followed by an open mic. This event is pre-recorded and will be available on the Writers Guild YouTube channel and Facebook page starting Sunday, February 28th. All this info is available on our website, or you can find out more by liking, following, friending, mash that subscribe button, whatever it takes. We're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, obviously here on Facebook. You can also on YouTube. We have a YouTube channel too. Or you can sign up for our newsletter by visiting our website, which is Writers Guild Bloomington, all one word, writersguildbloomington.com. All this info is and links and whatnot, especially to the film screening, are available there. Next month, we'll be back here on Wednesday, March 3rd, with poets Steve Hinn, Brooke Nicole Plummer, and Joanne Bree, with music by saxophonist Sam Newsom. It should also be a killer show. Before, let's see, I think that's it in terms of announcements. So the way we do tonight, the way we do this series is kind of a round robin. We'll start with a little bit of music, then we'll have our three readers read sort of back to back. Then we'll have another music set, and then another round of our readers again, and then they'll do kind of a lightning round. They'll do kind of a quick final round of the three of them, and then Stephan will close us out for the evening. So first up is Stephan Crump. Memphis bred, Grammy nominated, Echo Award winning bassist composer Stephan Crump is an active band leader with 12 critically acclaimed album releases, in addition to numerous film scoring contributions. Known for transforming his instrument into a speaking entity of magnetic pull, his focus on creative instrumental music has led to collaborations with many of the leading lights of his generation. I'm going to put his website in the chat and over on Facebook. Please take it away, Stephan Crump.
Thank you so much, Tony, and thanks to everyone. I'm very happy and honored to be with you all this evening.
Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you, Stephan. We'll hear more from Stephan a little bit later. That was great. It was a great start. First up, our first reader for this evening is a native of Louisville. Ellen Birkett Morris is the author of Lost Girls, a short story collection, and Surrender, a poetry chapbook. She holds a Master of Fine Arts in Fiction from Queen's University, Charlotte. Her short stories have appeared in Antioch Review, Shenandoah, South Carolina Review, Upstreet, and elsewhere. I will also put her website link in the chat and over on Facebook. Please welcome Ellen Birkett Morris.
Hi, I am really pleased to be here tonight. I'm going to read to you from the title story of the collection Lost Girls, and I'll just begin. When I was 18, 13-year-old Dana Lampton disappeared from the strip mall across from her family's apartment. My mind should have been on other things: guys, college, getting past the ID checker in the door of the club, but Dana's disappearance captured my attention. We lived in the same neighborhood, and the nearness of the crime creeped me out. Even as a kid, before Dana disappeared, I was sure that I would be the girl that was taken. I was always on edge, waiting for the next catastrophe, the next fight, my dad moving out, my mother crying day after day, my world collapsing around me. With me gone, those don't tell your father shopping trips wouldn't have happened. My dad wouldn't have anybody to complain to about my mom either, her stupidity, her tackiness. Not that anyone would notice if I was gone. My parents were so busy fighting that a change of scenery would have been appealing at times. Why not abduction? The kidnapping of Patty Hearst made the possibility seem even more real to me. Forget that my family had trouble putting together enough money for a family vacation or to buy a new car, much less a pile of ransom money. After Patty was taken, any middle-aged man walking down my street with his hands in his pockets was cause for alarm. I almost freaked out when my new friend's hippie dad pulled up to the yard where we were playing and yelled for us to get into the van. Images of child slavery rolled through my head. I'd be kept in some commune, forced to mix batches of granola and make homemade yogurt day and night. I even dreamed about being kidnapped. My captor bore a striking resemblance to the 70s television character Archie Bunker. In the dream, his mother, a kindly gray-haired lady, offered me cake. I woke up in a cold sweat, convinced I had tasted the icing. As time passed, I realized that I was just too old to be kidnapped anymore. Dana had taken my place. When she came up missing, the FBI combed every inch of a nearby field. The local paper ran her picture once a week for more than a year. When I saw her parents on television, arm in arm, united in their grief, I felt a flash of envy. My own parents had divorced years before, wrapped up in their own lives. While I tried to figure out high school and keep my grades up on my own, my parents requested my presence for drunken midnight weeping sessions and second marriages. I always showed up. Years went by and still there was no sign of Dana. How does somebody just vanish? In my imagination, I see her getting older, locked in at night, moving from apartment to apartment, somebody's prize. And me on the outside following my usual routine, school, dates, graduation, college, first job. Sometimes I feel like I'm living for the both of us. I stop and look around, noticing my freedom, feel the sun on my face, and my ability to hop in my car and go whenever I want. Why Dana? I can only guess it was an accident of timing. Who knows how often we cruise the aisles of the grocery store next to a sex offender or drive away from the convenience store as a robber pulls into the lot. Is it fate, karma? There are no free rides, that's for sure. All we can do is watch our backs and hope for the best. I can't seem to forget her. Every birthday, I do a quick calculation comparing her would-be age to my own. Every few years, I come here and leave something for Dana. Tampons, an old set of car keys, a graduation cap. She'll be 21 this year. Tonight, I'll leave this bottle of Jack Daniels. By morning, it'll be gone.
Thanks so much, Ellen. And we'll have a bit more from Ellen a little bit later. Next, I'd like to welcome Jen Moore. Jen Moore was born and raised in Seattle. She is the author of Easy Does It, 2021, so I guess later in 2021, unless it's out already, and The Veronica Maneuver in 2015, both from the University of Akron Press, and a chapbook of Cinto's Smaller Ghosts, Seven Kitchens Press, 2020. Her poems have appeared in Crazy Horse, Bennington Review, Interim, the Cincinnati Review, and elsewhere. An associate professor of creative writing, she currently serves as director of the School for the Humanities and Global Cultures at Ohio Northern University and lives in Bowling Green, Ohio. Once again, I'll put the link in the chat. Jen Moore.
Thank you so much, Tony. And thanks to everybody who's here and my fellow readers and artists. I'm super excited to be here. I'm working 100% remotely this semester and I'm not teaching. So this office has become like a very familiar place. So it's nice to be in this virtual space with lots of people who care about literature and music and poetry. So I just wanted to start off with a couple of poems from my new book, which Tony mentioned is titled Easy Does It and is forthcoming with University of Akron Press next month. It's out in late March. So I'm extremely excited about that. So I'm going to share a few poems from this book. I have no way with words. I have no way with words. A chill has stopped my mouth. Press the button for the elevator. It never arrives. I refuse sunflowers. I chase my own tail. In the mirror, no eyes, no lashes, no lips. For the Neverland boy who lost his shadow, soap will do the trick. Sit in the corner, kid. Rub the cake on the sole of your foot. Wendy knows better. Only a needle and thread can reattach silhouette to self, self to mind. But without a mechanism to hook syllable to sound, then thing to thought, my language lies loose and every nameless animal worries itself away. At a loss, these walls don't mourn, but this is my house. Muse of silence, here's your muzzle back. I'll go as a ghost goes. Tying a white feather to the hornet, I'll follow its flight back into the nest. You'll know my voice when you see it. A seedling hatching honey, an egg whose blue mouth has flown open. A lot of the poems in the early parts of this book deal with various kind of situations of difficulty. That was kind of my attempt to work through some version of writer's block. And this next poem is titled Of What's Difficult. Things are tough all over. I've just been notified that my cloud is completely full. Even the dog just wants to be left alone. We try to muddle through somehow. I rehang last year's calendar just to spite this year. Someone tags me in a post. If you haven't yet voted for the best album of 1993, now's the time. The dog walks out of the room. On TV, someone places a crown of flowers on the head of a serial killer. In the meantime, what am I supposed to do with these balloons? How much cocoa do I add to the boiling water? Pleasure is anyone's guess. All I want is for someone to drop a cherry into my cocktail mid-sip. It's the little things I miss about all of my future desires. Even the sloth, smiling serenely, must be escorted across the road or risk being flattened by a tourist. Like everything else, it takes longer to de-ice the wings than it does to fly home. This next poem is the title poem of the book, Easy Does It. This emerged from an experience going to the dentist in which I was getting a root canal, and later that day, my tongue is still numb, even though everything else just kind of, came back to feeling, and ended up calling the dentist and saying, hey, I've got this thing. He said, it'll probably go away. You'll be able to get feeling back. It probably took a good 3 months for the side of my tongue to recover feeling. And so it's a little bit on the traumatizing side. And so, of course, what do? You write a poem about it. So this poem is titled Easy Does It. The dentist is tired of mouths. The mower tired of grass. In the same way, I turn page after page looking for some new thrill. The habit is consoling. Each sheet of this book is secured to the spine. In the reclining chair, the expert says I won't lose the tooth. Of course, there are exceptions to every rule. Things split into most and least desirable, the weeds or the whacker, Novocaine or the drill. Despite all precautions, the needle nicks a nerve, numbness, a kind of monotony. Will I feel anything ever again? Answer, maybe not. I said it before and I'll say it forever. The tree has bark for a reason. Nothing ever does it easy. Blink twice if you're fine. It's hard to cry out with a mouthful of hands. Do no harm, the bulldozer yells, then raises your home to the ground. And one last poem before we hear from others. I'm going to read a piece from my first book, The Veronica Maneuver. And this poem emerged from an experience. I was asked to write a glossary of literary terms, and so I found myself immersed in words and language to a degree that I hadn't been immersed before, even as a poet. And a word I kept coming across when I was looking up definitions for things, the word is disambiguation. It's a way to tell one meaning of a word from a different meaning of a word. So for this version, go here. For this version, go here. And so I kind of took this idea and ran with it. And so this poem is titled Disambiguation on Desire. For arrest, see cardiac or crime. For the place you'll be taken to, the little place of forgetting, see oubliette. See migraine for a world that weighs inside the brain, and bulldozer for a sleep that stays awake. Hope or half the bird's bone is what you'll get when you arrive at wish. For the science of hidden message, see stenography. And if wishing doesn't work, try the ancient form of night prayer, nocturne. For downpour, see the bin full of broken umbrellas, the wide sky that protects you, rain shade or shadow, that which makes of your body a bullseye, fusillade. As a last resort, see the one who knows how to make iron move, locksmith. When you're tired of turning pages, he'll tell you love is a Taiwanese river, an empty seat in Oklahoma, one of several names for zero. See heart, see cardiac, see arrest. Thank you.
That was great. Thanks, Jen. And great promo for the new book. Sounds like there's a lot of interest in the chat in the new book. So good luck with that. Our third reader this evening is Shannon Gibney. Shannon Gibney is an award-winning author of books of all kinds, from novels to anthologies to essays to picture books. She writes for adults, children, and everyone in between. The through line in all her work is stories that may have previously gone untold. Her books include What God is Honored Here, Writings on Miscarriage and Infant Loss by and for Native women and women of color, by University of Minnesota Press 2019, and the young adult novel See No Color, and her most recent novel Dream Country, Dutton 2018. Shannon Gibney.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. Just always have to give this caveat when I'm on these Zoom meetings. I have a 11-year-old and a 6-year-old who are now in the other room, but that can rapidly change. And 2 dogs right next to me, and also their grandparents, my parents. So it's kind of an interesting, never dull house here. Really enjoyed the format of this evening, and just with the music and the different writers sort of interspersed throughout. So thank you all for that. I'm going to actually read a little bit from my new novel, which I call a speculative memoir. And so it's called Botched. It might be the weirdest book I've ever written. So far, there's always the next book. But I'll read the prologue, and maybe then I'll tell you a little bit more. I was born January 30th, 1975 in Ann Arbor, Michigan. The name on my birth certificate is Shannon Gibney, and my parents are listed as Jim and Susan Gibney. These are my white adoptive parents who raised me. The woman who gave birth to me and subsequently relinquished me was named Patricia Powers, a white working class Irish woman who had a short relationship with my African-American birth father, Boise Collins Jr. My birth mother, Patricia, named me Erin Powers after I was born, but I didn't find that out until I was 19. I grew up with my white adoptive parents in Ann Arbor, Michigan, with 2 white brothers who were biologically related to my parents. When I was 19, I embarked on a search for my birth parents and possible birth siblings, and found my birth mother, Patricia, who was still living in her hometown of Utica, New York. We had a complicated on and off again relationship from then on until her death from cancer in 2014. She was 58 when she passed. Through my search, I also discovered that my birth father, Boise Collins Jr., died from complications due to injuries he sustained during a high-speed police chase in Palo Alto, California in 1981 when I was 6. He was 35 at the time of his death. I discovered many things through my search and reunion. I did not discover many things as well. I now have 2 living children of my own, Boise and Marwen, and 1 dead, CNA. This is one way to tell this story in this time, in this place. What follows is another way to tell the known and the unknown, the truth and speculation, to call forth the living, the dead, and those residing elsewhere. So that's the prologue, and the basic premise of the book is there's this girl, Erin Powers, and I say the girl that I was, the girl I could have been, the girl I never was, and she's growing up in Utica, New York in 1985 with my birth mother. And then there's the real story of me, Shannon Gibney, growing up in Ann Arbor, Michigan in 1985 with my white adoptive parents. And it gets real weird because there's also a wormhole that the characters find, and it sort of connects the different timelines. And so I'm just going to read a little bit from a section about 40 pages into the novel where I actually get the chance to meet my birth father, which I never got the chance to do that in real life. But through this speculative moment, this character, Shannon Gibney, actually goes through this wormhole that she discovers in her backyard and gets to meet her birth father, Boise Collins Jr. Interlude 1, Palo Alto, California, 1980. When he hears the transmission go out again, he pulls off to the side of the Bayshore Freeway. The Oldsmobile 442 was never meant to be a reliable car. My father bought it because of its sheer brawn and audacious bright blue sheen, and because his friend Teddy was willing to sell it to him for his last $1,000. 10 years old and mostly filled with half-price replacement parts, the car chugs along well enough until it doesn't, and my father has to pull out his bag of fix-it tricks he perfected from his short-lived Air Force days. Maui, plug your ears. Motherfucker, he says in that short, slow drawl that only a black man can use to massage the expletive. Okay, you can unplug him now. The car shudders one last time. You can unplug him. Yeah. The car shudders one last time before he turns off the engine. It had been increasingly difficult to get it in gear and get it to stay in gear, but he was hoping it could last at least another week until he was sure to get that windfall from the appliance scam. There's another cuss word. My daughter's just right behind me here. He feels better the louder he cusses, so he says it again, and then hits the steering wheel a few times for good measure. Why is everything going so completely to hell lately? He had a plan, a good one. Harry would lift the product. He and Jorge would deliver it to Francie for the resale, and everyone would get paid and laid, as they say. But Harry had some hiccups lifting the product. Jorge was busy on another gig until Tuesday, and Francie had to temporarily close down shop since the pigs had been sniffing around lately. Story of my goddamn life, my father thinks to himself. Then he gets out of the car and slams the door so hard, he thinks for a moment he has broken the door handle again. But no, when he jiggles it, he finds that he can still open the door. Get a hold of yourself, man, he says as car whizzes past. This ain't that bad, really. You've been through plenty worse. Hand shaking, he takes out his pack of cigarettes, his lighter. The memories will come now, not all of them, he prays, but plenty to make his brain feel broken, his heart overwhelmed. His parents in one of their frequent arguments, screaming while he hides under the kitchen table alone, just a toddler. His sister Delphine, calling for him to help her at 14, when two of the older dudes in his crew at the time dragged her inside the shed. His first snort of coke, how it raced through his veins and woke up every single cell. And later, his first hit of heroin, dulling the seemingly ever-present pain. The woman, all of the women, many of them kind, some of them not, who he could never seem to give what they wanted. My father's hands are shaking hard now as he works to plug the avalanche of memories falling through his body. Although his thumb will not be still, he somehow manages to get it to flick the lighter, and then slowly moves his head and the cigarette toward the flame. It takes, and he breathes in the sweet relief of nicotine, which he knows will help get the memories moving and unstuck them from the hiding places inside him. My damn brain, he thinks, if I could just get it to shut up. But then his brain is what got him into the Air Force in the first place. "You the smart one in this family, Junior," his father used to tell him. "Don't waste it." My father takes another drag from the cigarette and blows the smoke out ruefully. "But you did, didn't you?" He turns around, facing the highway now, letting the shock of the speed of the passing cars overwhelm his senses. Wish, wish, wish. Sometimes that is enough to get his brain out of the stuck place. And then, out of nowhere, it seems, a miracle. A song appears in his mind. The lyrics are something about moving like God's immaculate machine. My father frowns. He actually can't place the song, although he knows it's Paul Simon. Where has he heard this? How does he know it even? "One Trick Pony," I say, suddenly beside him. My father jumps. "Who?" He glances around him, trying to discover where I've come from, I suppose. I shrug. He of all people should know the answer to that. "From Paul Simon's album." My father peers at me incredulously, taking in my frizzy fourth grade afro, my hand-me-down pink and gray shorts, and faded Muppet t-shirt. "Who the hell are you? And how did a young girl like you get on the side of this highway? Where are your parents?" I laugh, delighted at this line of questioning. There was something familiar about his voice, some quality I can't quite pinpoint. "I'm Shannon," I say, "and my parents aren't worried. They're nearby." He takes a step back from me then, clearly disturbed. He looks around again, taking in the wide expanse of the 4-lane highway, the boxy office buildings that dot the landscape. "I don't see them anywhere," he says. Then he shakes his head. "And I don't understand. I wasn't singing out loud, was I?" No, I wasn't. "How'd you know?" I step as close to him as I can so that our hands are almost touching. "What song was in your head?" "Because I heard it too. I hear it. My other dad plays it all the time in Ann Arbor. Me and my brothers, and I love it. We even made a dance to it. Wanna see?" My father shakes his head slowly. "No." I shuffle my gangly legs and sing a few lyrics as best I can. "Something like that," I frown, but I can't remember it very well right now for some reason. I think it's because I'm not supposed to be here. This piques my father's interest. "What do you mean?" I cross my arms. I don't know. I just know that the timelines got botched. Then people and places then pieces and people from one place get put in another. And the strangest things, I cannot finish my sentence because I feel a ripple like electricity shock through me. "Oh my God," my father is screaming. "What the fuck is going on here? What was that?" I fall to the ground once the ripple has passed. I feel exhausted, like someone has pushed all the air out of me. "What did you see?" He is pulling at the ends of his shirt 1 minute and then gesticulating wildly the next. "You were like invisible or something, like see-through. It was some Star Wars shit or something. I don't know, like an electrical wave moved through you, almost as if you were fading out of here and into somewhere else," I say, finally catching my breath. "I think my time here is almost up." He crouches down so that he is almost on the ground with me. "Are you okay?" His hand reaches out to touch my back, but when it makes contact, another electrical ripple surges through me, and I can see the tangle of trees in the woods behind our house on Terhune in Ann Arbor for a moment before I am ripped back to him. I gasp at the raw smack of the ground, at the shock of embodiment. "Oh my God," he exclaims, "you'll be ripped to shreds by this thing." I shake my head, knowing somehow that this is the last thing I will say to him before I go. "Your brain is fine, Dad. You gave it to me too." He almost leaps away from me then onto the highway itself. "Watch out," I yell as a truck barrels dangerously close to him. The driver honks his horn, and my father, Boise Collins Jr., runs back beside me, except I am no longer there. I am back home already. Thanks.
Wow, that's great. That sounds like a really, really interesting novel. Very interested in hearing more about that. Let us now take a musical pause and return to our bassist musician guest for this evening, Stephan Crump.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Stephan. Man, that was great. That was really, really great. So let us return to our readers. I think you all have the lineup, but I will chime in and I won't introduce you again with the full bio, but I'll chime in and introduce you again. So our three, at least our run this time will be Jen, and then Shannon, and then Ellen. So first up, please, Jen Moore.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. So I wanted to shift gears a little bit and share some poems from my recent chapbook that came out with Seven Kitchens Press around April of last year. Seven Kitchens is based in Cincinnati. It's a fantastic press run by Ron Mooring, and he's just really, really wonderful. So my chapbook is titled Smaller Ghosts, and Smaller Ghosts is a collection of poems that are known as centos, and a cento is a kind of a poem that's essentially a patchwork text that is assembled from pieces of other text or other sources. And I love writing centos when I'm feeling particularly uncreative or feeling like the well is dry or I have nothing to write, but I want to create. And so I started this project just doing a lot of reading and reading poems from poets who have work that is dear to my heart. And it turned into a series of 16 poems coming from about 35 or 40 source texts, ranging from poets like Carolyn Forshey to Shakespeare to everybody in between. And so I'm just going to share a couple of selections from Smaller Ghosts, and then I'll end with a poem from my other book. So this is the opening poem in the chapbook. None of them have titles. A single deer stepped into a stillness and watched me. Nothing need be explained. Given lilacs, lilacs disappear. Here in the painted world, the ghost garden, ourself behind a heap of apples concealed, a spectral game of hide and seek. I will always love the way a lost word will come back, fanatic against the vanishing. In the avenue of trees, the haunt sings, and it's my music. We never saw the fox, a stranger moving rapidly, nervous at the edge of 30 years of night. Hoping to capture his blue shadow, we made of exile a homeland, field after field of high grass and sea pods. Here again, the suggestion of a form, stepping into the mouth of October undergrowth. Odd birds call. A swallow returns to an invisible orchard. Have you seen it? That sound in the brush? Everywhere we saw untouched white. When the willow's leaves unfold across the front of your mind, the custom of measuring time dissolves. Blue smoke, flap of wings. You are beyond the ghost terrain of memory, elsewhere. There is no music, but growing inside of you an urge to return, to be assembled again, a delicate girl still in flight. And one last poem from this collection. It's supposed to be temporary, the moon ghosting a hole through the water, blue planets in full view. The skeletons leave handprints. They speak as one person, waiting for you with a message. One oar's locked and one oar's lost. The whole wideness of night is for you, silver and blade thin at the rim of the world. Scattered on a mash of sea, your tiny boat fills the four corners of the haunted room. I cannot contain its edges. Dimensionless one, I have no theory for the sky. One need not be a chamber to be haunted. The absolute boundaries of any earth, streets of clouds, ice crystals, is backlit with fever, white as burning ash. And then one last piece before we hear from others. I tend very rarely to write political poems. And when I do, they're just heavily metaphorized, but it's, almost impossible to not write political poems in this overwhelming and bewildering landscape of the last 4 years. So 2018, I was on a retreat in that summer and wrote this poem in response to the various kind of horrors that were going on in our country at that time. And so this poem is titled "The Fog." If we ask how the Enlightenment ends, we're told to ask a different question. Language isn't our first language. These tongues are speaking in tongues. Any hour, any day, the buzzard doesn't flinch at the oncoming car. Soon as we've passed, he's back to picking at the dead. Has the great experiment failed? Is the dream as we've known it now over? Behind the curtains, another curtain. To strike a tone of hope or loss of hope, I've got too many cards in my hand. Soon these chords start to sound the same, though when played on different instruments, they all sound equally wacko. Not everything's a metaphor. The thickest fog isn't even visible. To make it through the cloudiest day, I conceal my weapon on the roof of my mouth. The split tongue of a snake, I don't have to tell you this, can do more than simply hiss. Thank you.
That's great. Thanks, Jen. Excuse me. Believe next we'll hear from Shannon Gibney.
Okay, so moving right along. I'm going to read another weird passage from my weird book. And this is the Shannon Gibney timeline. So it's like a 10-year-old me in Ann Arbor, Michigan in 1985 with my little brother, Ben. The girl grabs a long and brittle branch lying on the floor of the woods. It is almost just the right size for the wall of the fort she is building. Almost. When she places it up against the rest of the branches she has gathered and stacked up against the black gum tree, it falls almost immediately. She harumphs and picks it up again, attempting to put it in exactly the same place. It falls again. Ugh! Her little brother, digging a hole beside her, stops momentarily to ask her what's wrong. This makes her madder for some reason. It won't stay up, she says, trying for a third time. This time, however, she tries to lodge the bottom of the branch into the soil, thinking that it just might need a solid base to remain upright. But the skinny wood just collapses after a moment, and the girl kicks at the dirt in frustration. Shan, Ben yells at me, you're messing it up. At John's instruction, our older brother, we are creating a kingdom for a new species of giant ants. Our older brother is very smart and insists that he has discovered something back here in our enchanted forest. John has told us that these new fantastic giant ants will need small stick houses to live in, with small ant beds inside to lay on. And even an ant bathroom outside of each dwelling, which Ben is in charge of. Whatever, the girl mumbles. It's already all messed up anyway, look. She picks up the errant branch and throws it back towards the rest of the towering trees that create a kind of cave around them. When they are back here, it is like they are in a completely different place, a secret hideaway only visible to kids. The air even smells different back here, musty and old and even wet sometimes. I often wonder if it is the air from another era, from olden times, that somehow got trapped underneath all the leaves and dirt and scrub, so that when we breathe it in, we are also transported to that other olden time. When I peer back at the house from on my stomach, breathing in the dirt and rousting around in the leaves and sticks and bugs and debris, it almost looks like it is from a distant future, some imagined place that doesn't even exist yet. The sliding glass door and the shuttered windows of our modest starter home look strange to my suddenly feral eyes and only become familiar to me once again when I am back on our safe green lawn. It's not messed up, Ben insists. You just have to know how to do it. He stands up, not bothering to dust off the dirt that now covers him head to toe, and gently places the stick beside the others on the emerging fort wall. It stays up. The girl sighs and shakes her head. Then she throws her arm around her little brother. How do you always do that? He grins, his 9-year-old grin. Magic, he says, and they both laugh. When something doesn't work, Ben is the person to ask, mostly because he has reserves of patience, which the girl seems to have been born without. The girl begins thrashing around in the scrub beside them. We need more branches, she says. Her brother grunts his agreement beside her, already back at work, thrusting a stick into a rapidly growing hole. And it is then that she sees it, a small circle with a spiral center, moving on the forest floor. It is bright, sending out mostly white light, but occasionally you can see specks of violet and blue and even green flying out of it. Ben, she yells. I'll fix it in a minute, he says absently, never taking his eyes off of his stick and the ground. I jump back from the whirling funnel about a foot in front of me and then hit Ben lightly on his head. No, look. He waves me off absently, but finally looks up. Shock spreads across his face and he jumps up. What is that? The spiral seems to be growing with each rotation, throwing off more light and even emitting a small sound as it turns. It's a high-pitched noise that is barely perceptible. I don't know, but it's cool, right? I say, inching my foot closer. For some reason, I'm not scared at all. For some reason, I feel like I should get even closer to investigate. Ben grabs my arm. No, he says firmly. But it could be like a portal to another world or something. You need to check it out. It appears to be a whirlpool about a foot in diameter, circling and circling its light faster and faster, like something out of Star Trek or even a dream. Maybe a rip in the fabric of space-time. Ben shakes his head, still staring at the thing. It's like he can't move, he's so shocked. No, he says again. So the girl decides to lean down instead and get a closer look that way. As she does, the high-pitched noise gets both higher and louder, and she has to plug her ears. It is a metallic scream, an electronic pin plucking her eardrum. But from this angle, she can see that the exploding spiral has depth, that although it is located on the forest floor, it looks like it leads to someplace else. She brings her face closer to it, and her brother's grip on her arm gets stronger. She squints. I can see something, she says. I mean, someone. I see someone in there. There is a blurry head and a pair of ears and 2 eyes. It's like they are shimmering in front of me, about to surface out of water. She looks back at Ben, and he is shaking his head. We should get away from this, Shan. This is weird. I look back into the spiral deeply, and I see myself peering back at me. I mean, not myself precisely, but someone who looks exactly like me. It's like she is me and she isn't. She's got a scar above her left eye, and I don't. And she's wearing clothes I would never wear, a bright red short sleeve jumpsuit. But other than that, she looks just like me. And she seems like she's peering into a mirror or something. Who's there? She's asking. Who is that? She brings her face closer, and I reach my hand toward her, toward the center of the pulsating spiral. No, Ben yells and pulls at me, but it's too late. I touch the spiral, and a giant spark goes off. It feels like an electrical current through my body, and the spiral starts sputtering and spinning. It turns on its side, and the escalating high-pitched noise is all-encompassing for a minute, making me feel like my head might explode. Then there is a small popping noise, and it is gone. I blink. What happened? I reach out to where the spiral was only a moment before, but now it is only dirt. A stray leaf from a birch above languidly rides the air down and lands where the spiral was a moment before. I punch at the ground. What? But the ground is silent. It yields nothing. I turn to Ben, desperation in my eyes. Where did it go? He shakes his head. I don't know, but I can tell he's glad it's gone. Come back, I yell into the ground. Strange girl, come back. But nothing happens. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Wow, it's a great place to leave it. Strange girl, come back. It's what everybody is screaming at you right now. That's great. That's great. That's really wonderful, conceptual story. That's amazing. So let's see. Next we'll have Ellen Birkett Morris.
All right. And I just wanted to take a minute to say thanks again for having us, and that I'm honored to be in such great company. This has really been a great night. I'm going to read a story called Kodachrome. Mama never knew about the pictures, the one I found, the one I took, or the one that was taken of me. Her idea of a picture was the family photo in the Slocum Baptist Church directory, all of us with perfectly combed hair wearing the same fake smile. I found the magazine during spring cleaning. It lay under my parents' mattress, pinned against the hard metal box spring. There was a lady on the front in her nightie, and not one of those flannel ones I wear in the wintertime. Despite being well worn, its pages were still glossy. When the light hit the page, it left a shine that reminded me of the sun hitting the window of Goody's candy store in the late afternoon. Inside, naked women were on their knees, lying on shag carpets, sprawled across modern furniture with their legs wide open. I saw the colors: bright red lipstick, raven black and golden blonde hair, and every shade of pink. I'd seen Mama's body plenty of times, interrupting her at her bath by perching on the toilet lid to tell her about what had happened at school that day. Compared to these women, Mama looked faded, used up, stretched out. I'd take the magazine out when Mama was at her card party or at the grocery. I was always careful to put it back in exactly the same place. We had just gotten a Kodak Instamatic with a Magic Cube flash. I love snapping the small glass cube with the sketch of the sun on it into place. I'd look through the viewfinder and expect to see something extraordinary. What I saw was Mama and Daddy, same as ever, arms around each other, smiling at the camera. I'd wait until they started fidgeting, hoping to uncover something new. The pictures were nothing special, except sometimes their eyes were red. Later, I would refer to my parents as traditional, but when I was 12, they seemed unbearably dull. My mama had been a home ec major at University of Kentucky, where she learned to make the perfect pie crust. Daddy loved walking in the woods and spent hours in the basement, separating screws by size and placing them into empty coffee cans. The thought of them doing what the pictures suggested was beyond imagining. If they had to do it, I was sure my mother would imagine assembling a perfect casserole, and my daddy would be thinking of what lay beneath the hood of his car. Slocum, where I'd lived forever, was especially boring. I was plain old Hannah Starnes with dirty blonde hair and long legs that made me look like a stork. If only I could get a picture that showed my true colors. One Sunday, I faked sick by holding a warm washcloth to my forehead for 15 minutes. It's not bad, but she's warm, Mama told Daddy. They decided I should stay home. I snuck the Instamatic upstairs and took a picture of myself. I lay back on the bed and pulled up my t-shirt. My sweat-covered hand shook. Point, aim. The camera slipped from my fingers as I pressed the button. Pop, our last flash cube gone. I used up the rest of the roll, taking pictures of our cat Max lying in the sun on the front porch. I rode my bike to South Point and paid my own money to get the pictures developed. The picture was a blur. I wanted to believe that smudge of pink I saw was my nipple. That was the year Jasper Max came to town. He was different, with his beard and jacket with the elbow patches. Miss Allen, the school librarian, said he was famous for taking pictures of the war in Vietnam. He was traveling across the country taking pictures for the bicentennial. He showed up at a church supper with his camera and spent the whole time walking from table to table, introducing himself. I watched him sitting on a park bench taking pictures of the garden club ladies working on a bed of petunias. On Saturday, he stood on the bleachers taking shots of the boys scattered across the dusty brown baseball diamond. He almost got a picture of Abby Linder as she decorated the window of the candy store. She held a large model of a lollipop in one hand and wagged her finger at Jasper with the other. He shrugged and moved slowly down the street. He was even in the graveyard as my friends and I played hide and seek, our stealthy movements accompanied by the click of his camera. I jumped from behind a gravestone and made a face at the camera, eyes crossed, tongue to the side. His laugh was rich and deep. I laughed too. He raised his camera and looked at me through the viewfinder. I stuck my tongue out and then hopped on my bike and headed home. I saw him again on a bench outside of Goody's. He let me touch the camera, hold it to my eye. The town looked different through that lens. The courthouse, library, even the grocery store was important. Afterward, I gave him some good and plenty. He ate everyone. From then on, Jasper Max and I were friends. He told me about lenses and apertures, and I introduced him to bottle caps and jujubes. He told me he was from Boston. He said it just like that, and I asked if that was near Boston, and he laughed his big laugh. I liked the look on his face when he saw something he wanted to capture, and the way he waited for just the right shot. I'd watch him shifting from foot to foot as I heard the click. Jasper Max wanted to take my family's picture. I knew he'd be able to help me see my colors. I told him to come on a Wednesday afternoon. That was the day that Mama put on her fancy clothes and had lunch with her friends in Andersonville. Wednesday afternoon, I put on a pair of Mama's high heels and wobbled over to the closet and picked out my prettiest dress, the one with the princess neckline dotted with small yellow flowers. I felt grown up letting Jasper into the house. Our living room had a bay window. Jasper said the light was good and set up his camera there. I looked around. Polished wood floor, our old couch covered with a crocheted throw, no white rug, shack carpeting, or leopard print. This would have to do. Where are your folks? He asked. They probably got delayed at the hardware store. Why don't you get a shot of me to warm up? I stood in front of the window, swaying a bit on the high heels. When Jasper leaned down to take the lens off his camera, I slid off my dress. The air felt cold on my breast. Jasper looked up, his eyes filled with surprise. He told me to get dressed. I reached back and grabbed the throw from the couch and wrapped it around my bare shoulders. It smelled of popcorn and cherry soda. Suddenly shy, I folded my arms in front of me. I felt the warmth of the sun as it shone through the window behind me, illuminating my colors. I smiled at Jasper and heard the click of his camera. He took several shots. Then it was over. With her arms crossed, covered with the Afghan, Jasper could see the woman she would become. She looked him right in the eye, her chin up, a slight smile on her lips. The bright light shone through the bay window, illuminating her. He took the picture quickly, praying her parents wouldn't drive up. "Why did you take off your clothes?" he asked. "I wanted to be seen in all my colors," she said. It was a curious answer, one he didn't understand. The picture of her standing in the window would become his favorite from his time on the road, capturing her strength, innocence, and possibility. "They aren't due anytime soon, are they?" Jasper asked. "No," Hannah admitted. Jasper packed up his camera as Hannah put her dress back on. I expected to feel different, older, special somehow, but I didn't. I wondered about the picture he took of me and if my colors had come through. School began again in late August. I stopped looking at the magazine. The Instamatic gathered dust in the closet and was replaced by other passions, a transistor radio and the music of Elton John. I almost forgot about Jasper altogether. When I was a senior, my class took a field trip to the Indianapolis Museum. As I walked through the museum, I saw Jasper's name over the door of a gallery. There was a special exhibit of his work. I saw a picture of a toddler holding a sandcastle, building a sandcastle, Terry from the diner holding a plate of pancakes, and Pete Phillips standing in the forest with steam rising from his outstretched hands and a look of bliss on his face. Then I glanced at the hollowed out frame of a burning barn with flames still rising and a boy standing in the doorway covering his eyes. My photograph was in the right corner. It was smaller than I thought it would be. I stood wrapped in the old blanket, the sun forming a halo behind me. It was a good likeness. I looked hopeful, expectant, but I never did get to see my colors. The picture was in black and white. Thank you.
Wow, great stories tonight. That was great, Ellen. Thanks so much. So we're going to have another round from our readers, but they're going to do a lightning round. And I think I gave you, so just kind of, just a sort of a parting shot from each of you, and it will go Shannon, Ellen, and Jen, and you guys will just go boom, boom, boom. I won't come back between you. So, Shannon, would you please start us off?
Yes, I would be happy to. Going to read from the same manuscript towards the end. If you want to engage a wormhole, you have to first identify or create it. No small feat. After that, you need a shitload of exotic matter, a magic ingredient which is basically repelled by gravity rather than expelled by it. Picture Professor Cohn, his appropriately eccentric physics instructor at Lawrence Tech all those years ago, lecturing to a full hall of half-listening undergrads. The key to exotic matter lies in quantum fluctuations, which give empty space a kind of fizziness. He brushes off an imaginary piece of lint from his suit jacket, only succeeding in striping it with the chalk he is frantically moving across the board. Quantum theory says that subatomic particles and their corresponding antiparticles are continually popping in and out of existence in the vacuum of empty space. Exotic matter might arise by suppressing this fizz, or as a physicist would say, by violating the ANIC, which is average null energy criteria. Professor Cohn smiles unexpectedly and catches his breath. Once he gets going like this, it's like an internal light is lit and the energy just multiplies. Clearly the man lives for science, and he imparts his love to his most dedicated students. Physicists have also theorized the possibility of time loops threading through a wormhole, along which backward or even sideways time travel is possible, but without its being able to alter the future. Picture a 20-year-old black male physics major, writing down these notes as fast as his hand can move the pencil across the paper. Picture his eyes alight with fascination, his every sense awake suddenly. Maybe travel across the space-time continuum is actually possible. Maybe this shit is more than just a theory. He grins to himself, all kinds of theorems, formulas, and computations beginning to pop in his mind. He's going to join the Air Force. But after that, he's going to enroll at the University of Michigan and study particle physics with Professor Cole's friend and colleague, Dr. Lane, a world-renowned researcher in the area of applied quantum theory. In fact, right at this moment, she's working on a super secret method to gather copious amounts of exotic matter. The hope is that once all that gravitational energy is collected, it can be harnessed and directed toward punching open a door to a wormhole. Thank you.
Okay, I believe I'm next. So what I'm going to do is read a couple of poems from my chapbook, Surrender. The first one is called Measurements. And it starts with a little factoid. On January 7th, 1896, Fannie Merritt Farmer published the Boston Cooking School Cookbook, the first cookbook to ever use accurate measurements. What was Fannie thinking, replacing the handful of flour with a measured half cup, a half teaspoon for the dab, a half teaspoon of salt for the dab, a cup of milk for the generous pour? Hadn't she seen my mother's palm, which cut my head when I was born, rub my back through restless sleep, measure the flour for our bread? Standing in the kitchen, I watched her small miracles, flour into bread, lettuce into salad, leftovers into soup. When the time came, she taught me her tricks. No shiny measuring cup could match the glory of my mother's words as I dropped my first handful of flour into the bowl. Perfect, just perfect. And this second poem that I'm going to read is called 16, and then I'll leave you with one more after that. Mary's mother was older with gray hair and a watchful eye. I'd visit Mary's apartment and we'd dance to songs on the radio, careful not to disturb the figurines on end tables. We'd eat white cake with chocolate icing. When the handsome football player came around, her mother invited us out to the patio and sat there too, looking right into his sleepy blue eyes, breathing in the sweet scent of pot from his clothes, offering iced tea, decaf, of course, it was after 8, and cake as if nothing were amiss. That summer we went horseback riding, just Mary and me. She borrowed the car, drove fast on the winding road. I chose an old horse while Mary sat tall astride a yearling. She rode him hard to the far end of the field, a blur of legs and arms, her long hair streaming behind like a veil. For a moment, I felt his flanks between my legs, the slow, steady rhythm of the ride, the difference between desire and contentment, the difference between the football player and a piece of cake. And just got one more for you, and that is called What Broke My Heart. It was the spareness of your cabin, the slanted porch and wood gone gray, your tiny kitchen with one clean pot set on the stove, the small bedroom with the iron frame bed I was sure you inherited from your grandmother. It was the bottomland that made up your farm alongside the river, the God willing and the creek don't rise hopefulness of it all. The small patch of zinnias that you picked to put in our baskets each week. It was the story that you told me while we stood by your truck of a strict father who didn't let you go to the movies, didn't let you go to the movies, at least not the ones you wanted to see. Your worn shoe peeking out from the bottom of your jeans. The sight of your back under your thin t-shirt as you unloaded bushel baskets from your truck. It was your marriage to a woman who bought vegetables from you, and how I asked at the year-end party where she was, and you said, I don't know, as if she just vanished one night, leaving you a sky full of stars but no moon in sight. It was the picture of you, your shirt off, young and strong, your heart still intact. Thank you.
Love that, Ellen, beautiful. I'm just gonna read one poem, and this is a poem that's in Easy Does It. And just wanna say thanks again to Tony for hosting, and to fellow readers, Shannon and Ellen, and for the wonderful music from Stephan. I'm looking forward to hearing more of it. This poem I wrote several years ago. I was at a writer's retreat in rural Wyoming, really the middle of nowhere, which was wonderful. partly because there's so many wonderful wild animals that would just kind of emerge out of nowhere. And so I felt like I got to know wildlife and the landscape in ways that I hadn't really known it before. And one evening I was driving home from the closest town, which I think was Sheridan, and it was completely pitch black outside. I was on a dirt road, and I turned the corner on the dirt road, and my headlights my headlights spotted an owl on the road, and the owl's eyes turned and looked right at me. And so I just had this kind of moment of connection with this owl. And I love owls. I have like a mini obsession with them. And at the time I was reading Emily Dickinson's collected letters. And so the title of this poem is taken from Emily Dickinson's collected letters. So this poem is titled, "I Hope the Owl Remembers Me." In a land of needles and mosses, I want to know what the prey and the praying bird knows. I will sleep with both eyes open. Who wants you, little star? Who wants you, hatchling? No wind moves the blue evergreen. I cannot find the source of noise. I know she lives with the moon in her eye, the hazelnut moon, hazelnut sky, and she sees the thimbleberry light in mine. If, like the owl, I could look backward. If, like the owl, I could mimic the texture of the forest. Instead, I guessed the cryptic plumage, the beak hooked at the tip for gripping. But what I want to grasp is the grimmer meaning of the owl's locking foot, her practically silent flight and asymmetrical ear. The bird, of course, is a kind of misdirection, another way of saying that I will fill my own coffin with bark. It will be like a nest that knows something. Treehouse, take back your architecture. I want to live in the structure of a feather and the gaze of an absolute eye. When I leave the world with a sleeping tongue, the door of the forest slightly open, I hope the owl remembers me. The owl, I hope she remembers. Thank you.
Wow, thanks so much, Jen. And thanks to all of our readers this evening. I am going to say some parting words at the end, but let's hear a parting shot now from Stephan Crump, and then I will come back and bid you good night. Stephan.
Thank you, Tony, and thanks to everyone. This has been a feast.
Yeah. Thank you, Stephan. That was wonderful. Fantastic. What a closer, man. All right, that brings us to the end of our first spoken word series event of 2021. I want to thank all of our performers this evening: Shannon Gibney, Jennifer Moore, Ellen Birkett Morris, and of course the incomparable bass playing of Stephan Crump. Thank you so much, all of you, for being here with us tonight. And thank you, audience, for joining us this evening. We do this every month throughout the year. Be sure and join us next month on Wednesday, March 3rd, where we will have three poets: Steve Henn, Brooke Nicole Plummer, and Joanne Bree joining us, along with music from saxophonist Sam Newsome. I think that's it. If you have any questions, want to find out more about the Writers Guild at Bloomington, see what other events we've got coming up, including later this week, tomorrow, in fact, check out our website, which is www.writersguildbloomington.com for all of your Writers Guild needs. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm going to close out on Facebook, and then you folks on the Zoom, feel free to hang out and chat for a moment. Thank you all once again, and good night.